So what is the difference in talking with concern about someone or just plain talking about someone?
Yeah, good question. That's what we're going to talk about today on episode 69 of the Junto Podcast. Welcome to the Junto Podcast, or welcome back. And that was a very good question, something that we have to think about. What is the difference when we are truly concerned about someone in their life, and when does it cross over into the line of becoming gossip? Inquiring minds want to know, and we're going to break this down today on episode 69 of the Junto Podcast. But before we dive in too deep, Heather, you look fabulous. How you feeling?
Oh, thanks. I feel good. It's looking springy outside, even though it's still technically winter, but 70-degree weather really, I don't know, it rejuvenates the soul. It's refreshing.
It's good for the mind. It's good for the body. It's good for everything. Mm-hmm. And I absolutely agree. Excited about that. 70 degrees, short sleeves on for the first time this year. And we're just looking forward to, I guess, what's coming up. Sunshine, hopefully a tan. Good Lord.
Definitely
boy, getting
need that.
Pasty around here. But yeah, so how can we, and again, as believers, we're going to bring this back always to a perspective of faith. How can we kind of guard against the mentality of gossiping? I think just to have some general conversation about it, I personally believe that in our day and age, in our culture, not only are we more open with the amount of information that we share, but I also believe that it's probably easier to gossip about people just because we have an open window.
We have all the info.
Yeah, we have all the info about their lives. And how can we manage that to where we're, not just talking about people just to talk about them, but showing genuine concern? And kind of to help us out, as always, we're going to reference an article called The Psychology of Gossip. So hopefully we can talk about that, break it down, and then even provide some questions that might help you determine if you really are genuinely concerned about someone or if you're just gossiping about them. What do you think about all that?
Yeah, definitely all boils down to intention, I think. And we're going to talk about that and talk about some tools, like you said, to safeguard us, because, man, it's so easy to just talking to someone. It's easy for conversations to turn a certain way, depending on reactions and the way things are said and emotions behind it. It's hard.
Yeah.
Being human is hard.
It's very hard. And, I think, let's just be honest. Let's keep it 100% real. This is 100%. My opinion. The reality is I think I think the humanity is just naturally inclined to discuss what they've seen, what they've witnessed, what they've experienced, and
processing information. Data.
And I don't think that's the problem. I think the problem is what, like you mentioned, you said it. What is the true intention about why we're talking about someone? And I think the reason why we're going to reference this particular article, because it really had some good information about maybe discovering the intention of the heart, breaking down exactly what gossip is, and then maybe how we can set some parameters in place to where, look, just as humans, we want to be good humans, but even more importantly for us as believers, we want to be good believers. We want to do what the word says. We don't just want to be hearers of the word, but we also
be doers.
Want to apply
James 1:22. Be doers, not hearers.
See, I knew I came to the right place and the right person.
You're here.
What do you think?
Yeah, well, we wanted to start off kind of with a definition of gossip. Because when you hear that word, I'm sure everybody's perspective is a little different, even though we all know what it means. Okay, what is it referring to? And there's also, we'll read it here in a minute, but not all gossip is negative. You could be gossiping positively about someone's life. So we're going to talk about that as well, and the difference in slander and gossip.
Now,
big difference there.
Goodness.
So
we
first,
deep. You ready?
It's freaking deep.
Fasten your seatbelts. Here we go.
All right. So
give us a
sharing information about others when they are not present is gossip.
Wow.
Simple, basic definition right there. We've all done it. Gosh. But this information is not always negative or malicious or slanderous.
Yeah.
I know Mom, she would call all of us kids on the phone, separately if we're not together, and tell each one of us about each of the other's lives and what they have going on.
Yeah.
That's not gossip.
Right.
She's telling information. We weren't present in the moment when she was talking about us, but it was she was telling positive information just to keep us all, connected and together. So,
well, and, I think that in the family unit, I think like we said, it all goes back to that intentions. And I think her intention was pure, just being connected, making sure the family is connected and staying in touch and in tune.
Yeah.
And then, we all go through things. Sometimes, let's just be honest, I believe there are times where people need to know things, if not for anything else, just so they can pray for you or on your behalf. I mean, so I think that's huge. So I like that example because that's a good example of how you can communicate in a way where it's not gossip, where there is a true, genuine concern.
Yeah. Well, and, talking about intentions, starting a conversation with, we need to pray for such and such because... And then it turning into is it more of a negative light that you're trying to paint there? Or are you really saying, hey, let's stand together and pray for this person in the situation that they have going on? Intention. It's all about the intention.
Well, and as we'll read in just a second, it talks about how maybe sometimes when you gossip, it's a sign that you just don't want to deal with some of the stuff in your own life. So lots to talk about there. But before we move on down, I want to read this little excerpt. Again, this particular article is from Medium. It's called The Psychology of Gossip, and It's Not Good. And that's literally the title of the article. I like this because this kind of is one of the things that prompted this particular topic. It says this, it says, thanks to social media, we are now all too comfortable discussing the lives of others publicly. Gossip is now almost normalized. And I would add, in my own opinion, that it's not almost normalized. I believe that we're full blown, like it's 100%
Yeah, let's talk about it. We're talking about it, everything.
Well, and here's the thing. So I said there was an experience recently that there was just kind of someone local in our own community was kind of going through something and posting all kinds of stuff. And it got to a point to where it's like almost like the talk of the town. Like it's the tea. Like if people are looking at what this person is doing for only one reason, that's just to see the drama that is unfolding in this person's life. And oh gosh, man, I'm just saying, regardless of that, it's a little bit sad to see that, especially when you never know what people are going through. And in this case, it really seemed like this person was really dealing possibly with some mental health.
Yeah, cry for help,
mental health stuff. And, I'm not saying everything was rude or anything like that, but just to see everything unfold in real time. And of course, there's some accountability because they they're the ones putting everything out there.
Right,
but, so.
Don't we overshare now these days?
Gosh.
Man, folks overshare. Do I overshare?
No, I was going to say I'm probably guilty of that. I do. But what do you think about that? This whole aspect of social media and just how it opens that door for...
Oh, it's just so easy. It's right there at your fingertips. Hey, and also I think it brings back to the humanities, the aspect that we're all kind of self-centered. And so let me let everybody know what I'm going through right now. And instead of let me call my pastor or call my best friend and say, hey, can you pray for me? Instead, I'm going to go to social media and say, this is what I have going on. Woe is me, victim. Is that wrong?
Yeah. Well, when you do that though, it's kind of like you gotta be careful what you ask for because you don't know what you're gonna get. You might get positive and you're gonna get negative.
You get both.
But going back to the gossip portion of it, I just thought it was interesting how social media, how all of that is directly tied into this idea of gossip and just how easy it is to peer into the life of someone and then make judgments without maybe not having all of the information.
Right.
And for us, again, we always take this thing back to a perspective of faith, man. We want to make sure that we're not doing things the way the world is doing them. Does that make sense?
Yeah, definitely. Set apart for sure. You should know that not all gossip is bad, but all slander is gossip. So what is slander? Slander is when you spread unconfirmed negative report or information about someone without attaching any proof of truth. Yes, it is equivalent to lying.
Gosh, yeah.
However,
here we go.
Even when you are sharing the information about somebody publicly, despite knowing that this person may not be comfortable sharing that information publicly, you are engaging in harmful gossip.
Yeah, wow.
Just putting some information there.
Yeah.
Make us all think.
Gosh.
Think about it.
Well, and this goes on to say too, why do we gossip? Why do we do it?
Why?
Why do we gossip? Well, check this out. Let's understand why we gossip. Well, when you have nothing else to offer in terms of bringing something to a conversation or anything else, you bring in juicy details of someone else's life into the conversation, and pretty much every person at that table falls into the temptation. Gossip is a fundamental human function. Again, we talked about sharing things about well-being and things about our daily life. That's not the problem. But when you start to indulge way too much into other people's life, and that becomes your single or most go-to source of happiness or topic of conversation, that's when you know you have a problem. So in real life circumstances, maybe someone's coming to your mind right now of like every time you see them, all they got is news about somebody else. You ever met somebody like that? Like it's always nonstop. You're like, good Lord, don't you got anything else to do?
Right.
That's crazy. What do you think?
Definitely. And I see that. I do. I see that. Especially if in big group settings, spreading information that's not, to people who it's neither here nor there. What is your intent? What's going on there? And it's so easy in a group setting to fall into that because you're lumped in. Like, what are you going to say? Okay. The right thing. Let's maybe we shouldn't talk about that, or maybe we should, find out all the information first. It's hard to stand up especially in a big group.
Well, yeah. And just piggybacking off what you said, I don't want to come across as if, we've got all this figured out and we don't gossip. No, this is just as much. Yeah. This is just as much for us as it is for anybody. And in fact, I would say every conversation that we ever have on this podcast is because we're all learning together. That's what Junto, that's what the Together podcast is all about. Doing life together. But yeah, good stuff.
Yeah, and I wanted to go even further to say, on the other hand, when you have a pastor, close friend, mentor, someone that you trust, a trusted outlet, sometimes there is need for you to vent some things, get some things out. The intent in that moment is not to spread a negative light of someone else. It's to relay, this is how I'm feeling about this person and the issue between us or what's going on, giving that information. There's a difference. That's
a great distinction
there. Yeah. Because we all need someone to, I call it therapy. My therapy. Like I have my therapy 100%. People. I need some help with this. Help me, check me. Let me give you this information and you check my heart on it.
Yeah.
We need that.
That's it.
We need that. And that's not spreading gossip. That's not slandering information.
Well, that's right.
That makes sense.
Because it's in a trusted relationship. It's in the form of saying, I think here's the difference. I think in that moment, you're dealing more about how you feel about what's going on in you personally, as opposed to just wanting to talk about someone else's tea. There's a difference.
Right.
When we go to therapy, when we go to counseling, it's because there's a burden on us. And now it might involve other people.
Right.
The burdens that we have or the things, it definitely might involve other people.
Yeah.
But the focus generally from a counseling perspective is I'm going to counseling because I'm not at peace.
Right.
Like I need some peace.
Help reconciling this or finding peace with this.
Right.
Yes. Yeah.
So great distinction. Yep. And I really appreciate that. And going back to this article, here's something that you need to know about gossip. Gossip actually shows low self-esteem. We say it all the time. You talk about others to do what? To make yourself feel better.
Make yourself feel better.
Don't we say that? I mean, it's
true.
kind of a common thing.
And sometimes when you hear, gosh, should I say this?
Oh, Lord.
I probably shouldn't say this.
Say, I don't know. Say it.
In general, sometimes when you hear things that have happened to people, depending on what it is, the severity, you're like, it does make you feel like, oh, gosh, they're going through that. I'm not having to deal with that in that sense. Make you feel better about yourself.
Right. Gosh. Yeah. That's kind of circumstantial. I think,
human nature.
Yeah.
Thinking.
Let's read a little bit and maybe we can shed some additional light. Okay. So, research has proven that people who spend a large portion of their daily conversation talking about others' lives, particularly personal details or negative aspects of others' lives, are actually suffering from a low self-esteem. They draw validation to themselves from others' misery.
Goodness.
Wow.
Whoa.
So they're going back to that intention.
It's hard to hear.
Yeah, that's crazy. I just want to read that. They draw validation to themselves from others' misery. So when they share information about others not doing well in their lives, they are validating that their life is so much better.
Goodness. And that other person is probably doing the same thing about them.
God, that's wild. That's crazy.
We are crazy people, aren't we?
Yeah. So low self-esteem. I think there's just things that we have to keep in mind. Why talk about gossip? Why would we even do something like this? Well, we always want to talk about real life things. And the goal of these conversations, just like when we talked about self-awareness and when we talk about other things, the goal is to be aware. Remember, we want to be molded into the best version of who we can be, and especially when we claim our identity is in Christ. Mm-hmm. And that means that sometimes we're going to have to come face to face with things and thoughts and things like gossip that we need to confront in our lives. And maybe this is not a problem for you, but guess what? We can still learn about why, the psychology of why people do what they do when it comes to gossip. So low self-esteem. Yeah. And I'm not surprised.
No, I think this helps having these conversations about this stuff because we all deal with these things. We all have our own perspectives and how we process the way we live our lives. Why do I act like this? Why do I feel like this?
Right. Ooh,
so it helps to put words into and definitions and whys so that we can work on it, because if we're not aware, we just keep going down that slippery slope.
Yeah.
So,
well, and to add on to what I just read, it goes on to say, and this is under the section about low self-esteem, gossip being low self-esteem. It says, a research done on more than 100 couples by a university states that if in your relationship you find yourselves often talking about other couples and how they do things, this may be your way of avoiding the real conversations and failing to address your actual issues or the actual issues in your own relationship. Wow.
Because it distracts from it. If you can think and talk about someone else's issues, then hey, you don't have to worry about yours.
Well, and I'm thinking about just the complete avoidance. How many couples do you really know that, really talk about hard things, or that can really express themselves fully? Even us being married as long as we have, there are still some times where it's like, it's difficult to express feelings.
Right. You don't want to bring things up because then there's this, brings up this whole, it's it's work. It's too much work.
Yeah,
let's just avoid it and whatever. We'll be fine.
Yep.
It's fine.
Exactly.
Yes.
Good stuff.
Yeah,
Crazy. You got
that's
anything
good.
to add to
Yeah.
that? Or okay,
I actually
perfect.
wanted to get into some of the questions that we can ask ourselves.
Oh, awesome.
Are you ready
Sure.
for that? Or you
It's
had
up
some
to
more?
you. Absolutely.
Okay. So whenever you are tempted to share intimate or personal details about someone with others, weigh your intentions. Remember, we talked about intentions.
Intention of the heart.
And ask yourself some hard questions. Okay? This is for everybody. Here we go.
Okay.
Number 1, how does passing this information help you or that other person?
Wow. Yeah.
Why do you so badly want to share this information? Do you have a valid reason? If not, don't share it.
Is it just to make you feel better?
Right.
Or is it just,
To get a one of those,
yeah. And do you secretly kind of, are you glad that that person is serving? Let's be honest, man. Some people are just evil. They take literal pleasure in the fact that someone else isn't doing it. Remember, in these types of situations, sometimes people gossip about people that they're connected to. And a lot of times people that we're connected to, there could be a number of things. Jealousy. Think about it. Early on, I remember, I'll use this as an example. I remember that when we had our children, if you've never had kids, you kind of go in, there's kind of all these preconceived things. Let me give you an example. Like, well, my kid was walking at 8 months.
Right.
Or my kid was, and so this stuff begins to happen in your mind where, you're going, oh gosh, now my kid's not
Keeping
walking.
tabs and comparing.
So guess what? When our kid was walking first, and there's what you're like, you use that as an opportunity to be like, oh yes. And see, because then it can turn in to gossip if you're not careful. And that's the reality, is that you just, within a second, you can cross the line from talking about someone you care about into really revealing the intention of your heart.
Right.
And why. Now, obviously by our second, third, fourth child, we knew the kid was going to end up walking. We didn't care if it happened at 8 months or 2 years. Like, you know what I'm saying? By the grace of God, if they're healthy, and all of ours were.
You're right.
But those things become less important. So, I don't know. Crazy stuff.
Just keeping ourselves in check, man.
Yeah.
Like you said, it's so easy to fall into that and doing the whole comparing thing, which causes those feelings of jealousy, being envious, and so we just got to guard against that.
We got to guard against it.
Yeah.
So I like that. So how does passing this information help you or that other person?
Right. What
That was
benefit
number one.
is anyone benefiting from you sharing this information?
Yeah. What's that second question then?
Okay, number 2. Are you sharing this information out of malice or envy? Or simply because you want to validate your own life? If yes, stop
right
yourself
there.
right there.
Goodness gracious. Wow.
So it's much easier to read this and say, okay, let me think about that. But when you get in the moment, you have to really stop yourself.
Yeah.
Because it can happen so quickly. Like, oh, I've shared this information. I did not respond the way that I should have. Let emotions and my wants get in the way. And so here this information's been shared.
Yeah.
And sometimes, it happens. We all mess up. Ask forgiveness.
Yeah, absolutely.
That's a big one. We all mess up.
Well, we absolutely. We're all human. And you know what? We all want the tea. I mean, let's just be honest. We all want the tea. Like, what's going on?
You want the tea? You like the tea?
Like, even when I talk to mom sometimes or whatever, like,
tell me the tea.
What's the tea? What's going on? And those things become conversational, but we just got to be careful and guard against. We want to be encouragers, right? We want to be the kind that are uplifting and edifying others. And so this is just as much for our own
big time
edification and growth as it is for anybody that's listening. So,
and it's good to know information, especially about your 100%. Loved ones and friends, your friends and family. Not only, of course, so you can pray for them, but hey, sometimes there's people need to reach out. Like, hey, how you doing? What's going on?
Yeah, that's true.
That's why we're here for each other. So there are some lines that shouldn't be crossed. And I guess the easiest way to figure all that out is what your intention is. What is your intention with this information, sharing it, not sharing it, keeping it, whatever. The
it's to feel better about ourselves.
Right. Make ourselves feel better.
My gosh, I hate it. But
it's
gosh,
truth,
most of the time
it's
just like, man, I think it's almost like the endorphins with a little drug. Man, you hear a piece of news or something, it adds that little edge of excitement, or you're watching the drama unfold on social media with the popcorn. You're just like, what's this person going to do next? You know what I'm saying? It's like free Netflix, basically. It's crazy. But we can't forget that we do need to pray for people and uplift others. So crazy stuff. Good stuff, though.
Good,
I like it.
Good and crazy. Number 3, are you sharing the information? Start over.
Information.
Are you sharing the information out of enmity? If yes, you know what exactly you are doing. And this is neither good for your enemy nor you, because it is damaging for your heart and soul.
Gosh. Goodness. Unreal.
We know ourselves. We know why we do things. We just don't want others to know.
Yeah, exactly. Well, what I really like about this is not a Christian publication. It's not, to my knowledge, affiliated at all in anything Christian. I could be wrong. I'm not familiar with this. But even the acknowledgement of how this affects you as a person.
Yes.
Sincerely, just how it affects our psyche, or character, your mind. We don't understand that when we do things like that. I mean, gosh, we're affecting who we are. We're playing
our well-being.
That's exactly right. And then, as parents, our kids are going to see us, and we're just going to establish and develop a culture and a legacy that it's just not who we want to be, I guess.
It's not. It's not uplifting. It's not edifying. Those are the things that we're supposed to be focusing on and putting our time and energy into.
100%.
So if we're busy spreading negative stuff, the positive gets thrown out the window.
Gotcha. I like this. The author of this goes on to say, I follow a personal rule. Before sharing about someone's life, I ask myself, is it necessary? How would I feel if someone were to share such kind of information about me?
Yeah,
do I have something better to do right now? Or do I have something more positive or worthy to share?
That's good.
So, simple things. And I think if we can get in the habit, when we do want to share some tea or whatever the case may be, that we go through that process of just saying, okay, wait a minute. How would I feel if this were shared about me?
Right.
How is this affecting me? Honestly, is it adding value to anyone's life, or is it just simply,
Shouldn't we do that everything in life?
We really should.
Ask ourselves those questions.
Yeah, 100%.
Is this benefiting anyone? Is this uplifting me? Is it showing, am I being a good example of Christ?
Right.
Can someone see Christ in me through this, or the opposite?
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Crazy stuff,
That's good
man.
questions. Whew.
What else you got over there, girl?
Yeah. So passing on personal details about someone else's life without a good intention seems like a harmless exercise. However, in the long run, it not only affects our credibility, it also damages our sense of well-being.
Wow. Yeah.
We start to depend on gossip and slander for our happiness and validation. This is neither healthy nor good for our personal growth.
Goodness gracious.
So avoid gossiping. Open up to others about your and their ideas, dreams, hobbies, ambitions. Sharing concern about your friends or family is normal. Okay.
Awesome.
But keep away from slander and negative information. Positivity.
That's it.
Try and fit that in there, man.
Hey, self-aware, being aware. If nothing else, you and I both, by us doing this, and hopefully you listening to this, you got some information. And now you're a little bit more aware about the psychology of gossip, why we might potentially do it, how we can change it, and overall, is it adding value to anyone's life? And I think you had a scripture for us in closing, or did you not? I'm sorry.
Well, I had a few, but sure.
Well, I thought you had a scripture, but yes.
Well, there are definitely some scriptures in here talking about the tongue and the way that we talk,
Lord.
and if we're Yes. So I don't know if I actually got a picture of it.
Oh, no worries.
But it's fine. So Leviticus 19:16, and this is the Message translation, which we all know is more today's terms.
Yeah.
Even though it's a little older still. But Leviticus 19:16, don't spread gossip and rumors. Don't just stand by when your neighbor's life is in danger. I am God.
Oh my gosh.
So sometimes knowing information about someone, knowing something negative, what is that for you? Do you just keep that information to yourself, or can you use that to say, okay, let me reach out to this brother or sister.
Wow.
Let me see if I can help them in some way because they're whatever the issue or situation. I don't know. But of course, always prayer. I mean, that's a no-brainer.
Well, and I know we've
folks.
talked about this on a previous episode where it says don't just stand by. I'm thinking about our cell phone culture. What do we do when we see somebody
Filming
suffering?
something.
We take our phones out and we film it instead of helping them. Gosh, isn't that wild? Somebody could be there dying, choking on the floor, and a person's first inclination is going to be to get the phone out and film it. Lord, help us, man. Nonetheless, I hope you guys were encouraged by that. Hopefully, you learned a little bit something, as did we, about the psychology of gossip, why we do it. And remember, 3 questions that we gave you that you could potentially ask when you are tempted to gossip about somebody else. Remember, you can always stop by juntopodcast.com, pick up a t-shirt while you're there, and we'll see you next time right here on the Junto Podcast.
Bye.
Be blessed.